Next up, we have Ken Finnegan, CEO at Trinity Tangent, partnering with businesses to create innovations and provide investment in technology. Ken Finnegan also contributes to national government policy with regards to emerging trend identification, priority areas for investment and investment allocation. He has global experience in research, development and in innovation in high-value technology organisations, and regularly contributes to a variety of business and industry journals, including Silicon Republic, Irish Tech News, as well as making presentations on technology innovation around the world. Ken Finnegan, CEO, Trinity Tangent, you're going to talk to us. First of all, you're very welcome, and we're delighted to have you. You're going to talk to us about innovation hubs.
Hello, everybody. It's great to be here at the Innovation Week, Sandyford's Innovation Week. Welcome to my office, aka the spare room, aka the golden pineapple room as well. So yeah, today I want to talk about, well, first of all, it's like, yeah, my name's Ken Finnegan. I'm the CEO of Tangent, which is Trinity's Ideas Workspace. I'm going to talk about the evolution, if you want, of the Innovation Hub, but also the idea that innovation is a mentality and not just a location. So my first slide here, you can see kind of like the idea of the evolution of the office. So the first kind of, I guess, collaborative environment that was established was a Frank Lloyd Wright Larkin administration building in Buffalo nearly over 100 years, nearly 120 years ago. At the time, it was one of the most innovative buildings in the world. It was the first building that had air conditioning, and it was looked as the kind of like the front runner in terms of co-working, office space, etc. As time went on, then there was the Johnson's Wax building in Wisconsin, built in 1939, and you can see from the little picture there, the thumbnail, that it was open plan. It was conducive for people coming together. So that idea of random interactions where innovation can happen. 1958, the Seagram building was built in New York. This was the first building of its kind made from metal and glass, and it was the most expensive building of the day. It cost $41 million to build. Then we evolved into kind of like probably into a kind of the depressing 60s when it came to office workspaces. So you can see that little thumbnail there as well. It's called the Bureau Landschaft Office, or the office landscape. Thankfully, we've evolved from that. Hot desking became a thing back in the 1980s, and it was borrowed from a term from submariners that shared their bunks back in the. It was established in the 1980s, essentially. Co-working then became hot back in 1999, and co-working has evolved. Like, we see so many co-working spaces, not just around the world, but Ireland, they're taking off as well, and they're evolving as well. And then private organizations like Google and Wikipedia adopted co-working trend back in 2007. So we're seeing a lot of co-working spaces, and I guess innovation happens in these places. And I'm going to talk about kind of like today, I want to talk about the idea that innovation is more to do with culture and attitude, because right now we're living in our spare room, essentially in your pajamas. So a lot of us are working from our home offices. So I'd like to give a definition for what is innovation. So creativity is thinking up of new things, right? It's not innovation. Innovation is doing things. So simply put, innovation is the manifestation of an idea into reality. So taking an idea and essentially generating impact from it. There's an equation there which I really, really like, and I'm going to explain what this equation is, because it's essentially the key to innovation, or the first steps into innovation, essentially. It was developed by a professor in Buffalo Universities back in the 1960s, Professor Ruth Noller. She was a mathematician by trade, if you want, and she was fascinated by creativity. So she studied creativity for years and developed this equation, essentially, as a mathematician would. So C represents creative behavior. So how do you essentially arrive at creative behavior? So creative behavior it's a function of knowledge. So you need to have some in-depth knowledge. Imagination is key to innovation. And then evaluation. How can you measure? How can you see if you've been successful in terms of your creativity and products, services, etc. Now, the one thing that nullifies all of these, if the attitude in an organization, or if your own personality attitude is, oh, we've always done it that way, or it can't be done, it doesn't matter. You will not achieve creative behavior. So attitude is essentially is the key concept, if you want, here in terms from a creative and innovation perspective. Attitude is culture, essentially. Knowledge, imagination, and evaluation are all tools, and can all be taught, and that's essentially where what we do in Tangent. So why is innovation and entrepreneurship become so necessary? So as John alluded to there, technology and technology trends are ever evolving, and it's really, really at times challenging to kind of like keep up to date and informed of what's going on. I just have a few of the trends there on the screen. In a previous life, I was a chief technologist in IDA Ireland, and it was my job to promote Ireland for different tech trends and demonstrate the substance and the talent that exists here in Ireland. So artificial intelligence, it's a very, very hot topic. It's promising to provide solutions that we've never seen before. We've also kind of like, if you look at macroeconomics, we also see and macro trends as well. We also see a change in like longevity of life, for example. So people are living longer and they're working in jobs for longer as well. The family, we're looking at nuclear families, for example. So less children are being had. So people need to focus on financial stability as they grow older as well. John was talking about our robotics in healthcare, but healthcare is ripe for solutions. We're progressing massively in healthcare. Automation in manufacturing, working from home. So, and I think actually is coming back to John's point about where we are in terms of being 5 years into the future. I think the entire world is realizing that we can get our jobs done from home, and our home doesn't necessarily mean we have to be in the city, or we can essentially work from anywhere in the world. And that was a trend we've seen like for a long time, but definitely COVID has accelerated that. And then finally, it's like business model innovation. So we've seen over the past 10 years, we've seen the gig economy rise. We've seen lots of new different types of business models emerge. It's just, I guess the point I'm trying to make here is that change is constantly happening and at speed. So I'm not a big fan of this slide per se, but I use it as a kind of like just to illustrate or demonstrate kind of like none of these companies existed 20 years ago, even if they existed 15 years ago, some of them didn't. But they have been massive disruptors. And even these organizations themselves are constantly innovating. They're constantly looking at new products and services, new sectors, new geographies, and they're all familiar to us. And it's just, as I say, an illustration of the speed at which change is happening. And this is kind of like, I guess, technical side of things. So the speed of change, the speed of innovation. Innovation itself is we use it as a term, and it can mean lots of different things to people, but essentially it is the speed of change. On the left-hand graph here, you can see what we call the S-curve of innovation. So at the bottom of the S, you'll see the early adopters, the people that buy a new technology. They're the guys that stand outside the Apple store wanting to buy the brand new phone the night before or the week before. Then you've got people like me who will adopt a new technology in its growth phase. And then you have a maturity point where that new technology is coming to its end of life, essentially, and that's the window of innovation. That's where companies need to innovate. Now, 100 years ago, the S curves were a good bit of distance between them in terms of time. So you could innovate, you could wait a few years, 10 years or something, whatever the amount of time was, and then innovate and develop a new product or service. On the right-hand side, you can see these S-curves have gotten closer and closer and closer. And essentially, from what I understand, for example, an iPhone, they're working already on the second, next 2 generations ahead when they're releasing this one. So it's the pace of change is incredible. And the need to adapt to that change is immense. So people in organizations who learn to adapt versus those who choose to become overwhelmed by the pace of change in the world will enjoy greater success and personal satisfaction. They will also accept that this change is inevitable, and acceptance will liberate them from fear. So that gets back to my equation that I mentioned earlier on, the attitude. If you embrace change, if you embrace the idea that things are going to change, life becomes easier, and you'll have a fantastic personal culture, but in an organization, you need to develop that culture to embrace change, to be agile, to be adaptable, and also to be resilient, because sometimes, or a lot of times, innovations don't work out, and that's fine. And we'll talk about that in a second. So how do we adapt? So for the organization, and we work with a lot of organizations in Tangent in terms of developing their culture. So they need to encourage and develop that entrepreneurial mindset and an innovative culture in their organizations to empower all staff. And I think it's really important to say all staff. A culture doesn't exist within one innovation team. It needs to permeate with it throughout the organization. So, for example, I think John had mentioned or was discussing the idea of quantum computing being used in the medical sector. You need to bring clinicians to the table. You need to bring administrative staff to the table. You need to bring software developers to the table. You need to bring hardware engineers to the table. And it's through that diversity and that diversity of thinking that great solutions can come up. However, so what are the steps in establishing an innovative culture within your organization? So invest in skills for innovation. So just like any hard skill, like a software engineer, like a doctor, like an accountant, there are skills that your organization should invest in, and essentially a toolkit for innovation. It's a language for innovation within your organization that the accountant can talk to the engineer, can talk to the product manager, etc. They can all have the language of innovation if you want. To generate ideas, companies must let employees know that they are open for innovation and encourage it. So again, creating the space and time for innovation to happen, to encourage innovation, to generate ideas. That idea of creativity, develop creativity within the organization. Give staff the space to work on ideas. So innovation needs time, and often employees feel they have no time to spare. And especially during COVID, I've had a lot of conversations with organizations and individuals working in different roles. In Trinity, we are obviously an academic institution, and we do have some international partners. But having conversations with some of my peers and colleagues and friends in international organizations, Facebook, Google, etc., it's very hard for them to switch off because they're working in international organizations. Emails come in at all times of the day. So being able to switch off and carve out time for themselves is a challenge, let alone for innovation. And that's one of the big challenges with COVID at the moment. It's very transactional. If I need to talk to somebody, I'm not going to have a chance encounter with them at the coffee machine and have a chat. I call them up specifically to ask a question. So we need to carve out strategically a time and place, if you want, whether it's virtual or physical, for innovation to happen, especially now. Incentivize innovation. So be it monetary or otherwise, the best way to keep employees trying hard and working towards success is to reward effort. I think one of the best rewards for innovation, if you're developing products and services, or efficiencies within your organization, is obviously recognition. But people get pride out of seeing their products and services being developed and used by the company. And then one of the most important areas, and one of the areas that we in Tangent kind of definitely promote, is this idea: never fail to fail. So encourage failure in a safe environment. In a safe environment, obviously, you don't want to risk your business, because this is how we learn and grow. I was lucky enough to have a conversation last year with Jack Dorsey, the CEO of Twitter. And we were officially launching Tangent last September, 12 months, and we talked about this idea of failure in organizations, and how we need to, especially I think from an Irish perspective, we don't necessarily embrace failure, and I think we need to learn how to embrace failure in safe settings. So it's something that we do in Tangent in terms of no idea is a bad idea, evolve that idea, create minimal viable products, prototypes, and if they work, great. If they don't work, how do we evolve that idea and move to the next level? In our space in Trinity, we have written in big letters, ever tried, ever failed, no matter, try again, fail better. A famous quote by Beckett there. I talk about this idea of innovation culture as a service. So instead of, and I guess it's something something that Tangent work with organizations and students on. So instead of focusing on memorizing facts and regurgitating content, we teach our students in Tangent of all ages and at all stages, and that's really important. I'll talk about that in a sec. To focus on establishing a foundation upon which to keep learning while developing their innovative and entrepreneurial mindset. So all ages, we work with students in Trinity. Tangent is it was a strategic choice when it was being set up. We are not part of any school or specific discipline in Trinity. We are here for all students in Trinity, whether you're studying chemistry or engineering or business. We are here for all students. And when I say at all stages, so the idea of the future, when we talk about the future of work and the need for lifelong learning, we work with, as I said, organizations, SMEs, multinationals, and we work with everybody from the age of 17 all the way to the age of 70. Everybody has something to bring to the table. There is richness and diversity, and we very much embrace that. So I talked about the organization and that idea of an innovative culture within an organization. For individuals, we have to develop the capacity to keep learning, questioning, innovating, and creating throughout our lives. So this is a really nice demonstration or a walk through education, if you want, in history. So you have the depth of knowledge there, the I-shape there is the historical kind of, like, I go to school, I go to college, I get my education, and then I've got a job for life. That's fine. That's long gone. As I mentioned earlier on, different business models, gig economies. We need to be agile, adaptable, and resilient. In Tangent, we definitely look at the T shape. So that's the idea of having a depth of knowledge. So engineering, chemistry, whatever that depth is, medicine, for example. But to have the softer skills or the transversal skills, which is the horizontal line on the T there. So it's about developing your effective communication. It's about developing critical analysis. It's about being able to maneuver a changing world. And as I said earlier on, it's about embracing change. And we look at kind of like, it's like the idea of the pie shaped and the cone shaped. That idea of, like, you're not just going to have one job or one career in life. You may have multiple careers in life. And this idea is equipping people with the ability to navigate these changing careers, to understand and identify opportunity when it presents itself, and to go after it. So at a time of rapid change, a transformation in how, when, and where we learn is critical to staying on top of the game. The only solution is a commitment to lifelong learning. So I'm going to talk about Tangent for a second. As I mentioned, we're an independent unit within Trinity, working with both students and organizations throughout the country and the world, actually. The idea behind Tangent is to engage, to create an ecosystem. We educate, we incubate, and we accelerate. So it's all about the journey of an idea. It's taking an idea, whether it's to start a company, whether it's to develop a new product or service, and bring our customers and students on that journey. So Julie Cinnamon will always talk about if you can't see it, you can't be it, with regards to women in leadership. And it's the same with regards to successful entrepreneurs and innovators. So we run a lot of events. Obviously, a lot of them are virtual at the moment, but we run a lot of events to kind of develop that ecosystem, to create awareness about innovation and entrepreneurship and the success that Ireland has achieved. Inspire that idea of lifelong learning. We activate the community through events. So we run hackathons, we've got meetups, we've ideathons, anything that brings people together, that creates that diversity. And then we provide leadership and innovation and entrepreneurship. So that's the engagement side of things. It's about inspiring. It's about creating an awareness. It's about getting students and organizations excited about innovation and entrepreneurship. We educate. So at our core, we deliver programs in innovation and entrepreneurship, and we're an applied unit, by the way, as well. So we don't work. We're informed by theory, but we work on real world problems. So we work with lots of organisations from across Ireland and the world, and we take innovation challenges for them, and all our students will work on those innovation challenges. So when students work in Tangent, they get an opportunity to work on genuine real world issues and not just look at the theory behind them. There's no exams. The exam essentially at the end of a module is to stand up in front of your peers with your colleagues, having worked on an innovation challenge, and present back your findings to them, and demonstrate that you followed, like, for example, a design thinking methodology. So one of the innovation tools that we use. We've got certified undergraduates and postgraduate programs, professional development programs, and we're also all across Ireland as well. Currently, we're running programs in Wexford, Athlone, and in Galway as well. So we are innovative in terms of our core and what we do, but also inside of a 430-year-old institution, it's the first time Trinity has left Dublin. So we're very proud of that as well. Then the last two parts are to incubate and accelerate. This is the having been excited about an idea or being inspired by an entrepreneur and innovator. You've developed the skills within yourself through an education, and then we also provide lots of different types of platforms for students and startups to incubate and accelerate their ideas. So we have one of the best student accelerators in Europe, our Launchbox Accelerator, but we also run European funded accelerators, digital health innovation, climate entrepreneurship. And I'm delighted to announce that we'll be launching, should I say, an artificial intelligence accelerator early next year. So watch this space for news on that. And that idea is, again, we put individuals and companies through the funnel, and at the end of it, we'll have early stage startups, but with a product and that are ready, that are investable essentially. So it's all about generating impact. As well as I said, working with organizations. We work with organizations to help them develop their sprints and products and services as well. So we've had impact. As I mentioned, we've been around for 2 years, but we're a consolidation of lots of activities from Trinity. So lots of different innovation and entrepreneurial activities from around Trinity. I won't get into this, but you can see the numbers there. We're very proud of what we've achieved. Over 2,000 students and professionals educated in innovation and entrepreneurship. We've spun out over 130 startups, one of which sold for 60 million just earlier on this year. Food Cloud, famous company, social enterprise, founded by Isolde Ward, was the first winner of one of our accelerators as well. So look, working with Tangent is you can be rest assured that there will be impact for your organization. So to finish up, I'm reiterating that the 2020's Innovation Hub is definitely is about the attitude and culture within your organization and helping your people to achieve that attitude towards innovation and the desire to pioneer and explore. And on that note, I will say thank you very much, and I hope you enjoyed this presentation.
Ken Finnegan, Trinity Tangent, thank you very much. I love your wallpaper. Pineapples are very on trend at the moment.
Yeah, normally I have a screensaver in the background, so nobody gets to see the pineapples. So yeah, pineapples on trend this year.
Stick with the pineapples.